Brakata Yahweh Yahweh Shai, and Brakata Yahweh Yahweh Shai, Brakata Yahweh Yahweh Shai, Brakata Yahweh Yahweh Shai, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Barak, Warapah, Wakazak, to the apostles, elders, and the brethren scattered throughout the four corners. Shalom. Today, I want to speak about Jewish center bomb threats top 100 kids pulled from schools. So you've had for about the last 2, maybe 3 weeks, you've had it's kept popping up in the news. I've been seeing it on CBS and CNN. You have bomb threats popping off at these different Jewish community centers. Let me just play this video real quick and then go into it a little bit.
Recent threats targeting Jewish community centers and vandalism of Jewish cemeteries, as well as last week's shooting in Kansas City, remind us that while we may be a nation divided on policies, we are a country that stands united in condemning hate and evil in all of its very ugly forms. Each American generation passes the torch of truth, liberty, and justice in an unbroken chain all the way down to the present. That torch is now in our hands, and we will use it to light up the world. I am here tonight to deliver a message of unity and strength, and it is a message deeply delivered from my heart.
Okay, that was enough of that bullshit from Trump. Now, Jewish center bomb threats top 100 kids pulled from schools. So what's been going on is you've been having these Jewish center bomb threats, and they've been having to pull their kids out of school. And there's an investigation going on. But the reason being is, number one, you damn so-called Jews, you're not the people of the Most High. You're a bunch of goddamn imposters. That's number one. Now, let me get a quick scripture. Quick scripture. Revelation, the second chapter. Revelation 2 and 9. It says, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty. It's talking about the real Jews. But thou art rich. Why are we rich? Because the promise of the kingdom is to the Israelites, the real Israelites, the real Jews, mind you. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Who worships in them synagogues? You goddamn so-called Jews. You're the synagogue of Satan. All right. And the reason why you're undergoing this situation with the let me read a little bit of this. CNN. There's supposed to be pillars of unity and peace where both Jews and non-Jews can enjoy classes, sports, and other communal activities. This is talking about the Jewish community centers. But more than 80 Jewish community centers and schools have turned into targets of hate and been subjected to bomb threats as fears of heightened anti-Semitism spread across the country. Threats have reached such a crescendo that President Donald Trump used his speech to Congress on Tuesday night to address the issue. And the issue is, you are not the Israelites. When the Balfour Declaration was declared, the Balfour Declaration, on November 2nd, 1917, Foreign Secretary Arthur James Balfour writes a letter to Britain's most illustrious Jewish citizen, Baron Lionel Walter Rothschild, expressing the British government's support for a Jewish homeland in Palestine. Britain's public acknowledgement and support of the Zionist movement emerged from its growing concern surrounding the direction of the First World War by mid-1917. Britain and France were mired in a virtual stalemate with Germany on the Western Front, while efforts to defeat Turkey and Gallipoli Peninsula had failed spectacularly. So, that's enough of that. But when the Balfour Declaration was set up, they were trying to set up a homeland for these fucking so-called Jews. And basically, World War II was the stage, because after World War II was done, in 1945, when World War II was over, they basically brought down Nazi Germany. They put them so-called Jews there in the land of Israel. They don't belong there in their land. It's not their land. And then what happened a few years later in the 50s, sometime later in the 50s, you had a man that rose up named Gamal Abdul Nasser. And it spoke about him in the scriptures here in the book of Obadiah. Obadiah 1 and 1 and 2. The vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord power concerning Edom. Edom, you sucking fucking so-called white people. You're the Edomites. Donald Trump is a goddamn Edomite. Them damn so-called Jews are a bunch of damn Edomites, alright? We have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. That ambassador that was sent amongst the heathen is Gamal Abdul Nasser. If I can find, I had a picture of him up here. Let me see if I can find it. I'm gonna go right here and find it because I had it up here. Now, Gamal Abdul Nasser, he caused what was known as the 6-Day War, and what it was about was him trying to gather the Arab nations together to fight against the so-called Jew that was there in Israel. And this statement is what Gamal Abdul Nasser. I mean, this is a bunch of pictures of him. I'm gonna just blow this up right here. This is what he said. They left black, the war for Israel. When he was asked about peace in the Middle East, the late president of Egypt, Gamal Abdul Nasser, stated, "The Jews will never be able to live here in peace because they left here black but came back white." And that started what was known as the 6-Day War. And you can read about the 6-Day War, in which he was trying to get all the neighboring Arab nations to come together to fight against the so-called Jew. And basically, they lost the 6-Day War, so on and so forth. You can go and read about it. But this is the statement that he made. He said that the Jews will never be able to live here in peace, them so-called Jews, because they left here black but came back white, right? Now the scripture says this here in Micah the 4th chapter, right? Because when they established the state of Israel in 1948, they said, "Look, here's the prophecy: the Jews have returned to the land," and now basically they were saying that was the kingdom of heaven. Well, if that's the case, the scriptures say this, Micah 4. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains. It's talking about the government. Mountains represent government. When two different opposing governments meet, they call it a summit, which is the top peak of a mountain. So, but in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord, meaning the government, shall be established in the top of the mountains, meaning it's going to be the top over all governments. And it shall be exalted above the hills, lesser governments. And people shall flow unto it. And many nations shall come and say, Come and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, and to the house of the Most High, house of the power of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. It says, And he shall judge among many people, and rebuke strong nations afar off, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Wait a minute. So when they were established, according to what the prophecy says, all the nations are going to come and ask to be taught of the word of the Lord. Has that happened since them so-called Jews were set up there in Israel? Hell no. It's been the hotbed of the planet Earth from then until now, and still even now. That's why you got bomb threats going on in Jewish community centers. All right, that's why you got people kicking over Jewish grave sites. I'm gonna go back to the article and go further down, and there's tombstones and stuff that were kicked over because number one, it goes back to the Mazzini Pike plan. If you know about the book Satan's Angels Exposed, well, in there was the Mazzini Pike plan, which was about staging 3 world wars to setting up the new world order. And the last war, World War III, was going to be drummed up with the controversy between Judaism and Islam. With the controversy between Judaism and Islam. And that's exactly what's popping off right now in the world. the controversy between Judaism and Islam. That's why Trump is passing these travel bans and trying to stop people from different Arab countries, if they have a visa, from being able to come back in the country, if they left the country to go visit their homeland and then to come back. And he's trying to push all the immigrants out. How would you say, undocumented immigrants? And if there's any children that have been born to undocumented immigrants, they got to go too. But with these so-called Jews, that has been the hotbed of the earth. And the scripture says that the nations are going to come and they're going to take their swords and their spears, which are what? Instruments of war, and they're going to turn them into plowshares and pruning hooks for what? To farm the land. Because nations are not going to learn war anymore. That's not the case. That's not what's going on. The nations are allocating money and preparing for what? War. That's all you keep hearing about in the news. They're preparing for war. I'm going to read it again. Verse 3. And he shall judge many people and rebuke strong nations afar off. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. And that's when the real Israelites get established in that land. Those are not the real Israelites. Those are a bunch of goddamn imposters. Let me read it again. Revelations 2 and 9. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. Talking about the real Jews. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. You damn so-called Jews. Now, let me go back here to the article. And scroll down some. Okay. The president was referring to the toppling of dozens of Jewish headstones in cemeteries in 2 cities and the shooting of 2 Indian men in Kansas, February 22nd, by an assailant who reportedly shouted, "Get out of my country." One of the men died. It says law enforcement officials believe many of the threatening calls to Jewish community centers have originated overseas. In other words, coming from overseas. So far, none of the threats have been carried out, but the lack of destruction has not made them any less chaotic or anxiety-inducing. This is the first time in the 60-plus years of our organization we have had a bomb threat called in, and now we've had 3 bomb threats this year, said the CEO of a Jewish community center in the Northeast, who wished to remain anonymous for fear of copycats targeting his center. It's alarming. The alarm from the bomb threats, combined with the recent vandalism at Jewish cemeteries in St. Louis and in Philadelphia, have led some to see a pattern of rising anti-Semitism. The series of bomb threats in recent weeks has disrupted day-to-day life, sparked fear in tight-knit communities, and raised questions about the federal government. And raised questions about what the federal government is doing to find out who's responsible. You ask me, are the feds doing enough? And I'm really not sure, the anonymous CEO said. And this is a little chart right here showing like the bomb threats against Jewish centers and schools in 2017. And that's good for you, because number one, you're taking on an identity that's not yours. Now here it goes. This is showing a picture of,
The FBI and the Justice Department are investigating a new series of bomb threats directed against Jewish community centers across the country. The JCC's reported 11 bomb threats on Monday alone. That brings the total number to 69 threats in 27 states just over the past 6 weeks, most of them falling on just 4 dates. Fortunately, though, no bombs have been found so far. Also on Monday, look at this, more than 100 headstones were found vandalized at a Jewish cemetery in Missouri. It's not clear yet if there's any link to the bomb threats, though.
The White House is now condemning the bomb threats. This after President Trump twice last week danced around questions about anti-Semitism. A White House statement says hatred and hate-motivated violence of any kind have no place in a country founded on the promise of individual freedom. The president has made it abundantly clear that these actions are unacceptable. The statement does not actually mention Jews, something the White House was also criticized for after a statement put out on Holocaust Remembrance Day. But Ivanka Trump, who converted to Orthodox Judaism before marrying Jared Kushner, tweeted this: "America is a nation built on the principle of religious tolerance. We must protect our houses of worship and religious centers. Hashtag JCC.
Okay, so that was it on that right there. Now, just showing you that you got these Jewish cemeteries, the headstones are being kicked over, and the reason why this is happening is because you are not the Jews. But since you wanted to take on our identity and say that you were us, well, the Lord has something for you, and I'm going to read it in Zechariah. I'm going to read this in the book of Zechariah. Get this pulled up here. All right, Zechariah 12. And I'm going to start at 2. Zechariah 12 and 2. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. And they were kicking over them tombstones, right? The Lord said he's going to make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. So that's what's going on. Since you wanted to take on our identity, our nationality, say you was us, you set up people to do iconoclasm, to destroy dark images and destroy statues and dark art and all that. Well, the Lord said, and in that day I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it, you're burdening yourself with it, shall be cut to pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. And all the nations of the earth are going to be gathered together against you bastards in war. So with that, I'm going to say shalom. I hope you brothers learned something. Until the next video. Shalom.